Everything. All right, and everything gets recorded.
Yay.
So, hi, Caitlin. I'm so excited to have you on and be speaking with you today. So, I was wondering if we could just start off and letting you tell us in your own words who you are and what you do.
Yes, totally. So good to be here. This is so fun. So I'm Caitlin, and I am a certified fertility awareness educator and also a coming of age mentor for girls and teens. I'm based in the North Bay area of California, and I have been doing this work for a little over half a decade now. And I am incredibly passionate about it for many different reasons, which we can get into, but most of all, because um, for most of my life until the age of 25, I had absolutely no idea what was going on with my body, what was going on with my fertility. And I felt like I lived in this body that was not even my own, and I had no clue. And that was really painful and really confusing, really scary. And so to be able to do the work that I'm doing is, I just want to give it everything I've got because I know how needed it is. And especially in the last few years, my attention has really turned to teaching to youth because I don't want anyone to get to the age of 25 and not understand how their body works. Whereas they may understand many other things about the world, like how to drive a car or how to do a math equation, but they don't even know what's happening with their cycle. So that's me in a little teeny tiny nutshell. Other than that, I have a long history, a long background in performing arts. And so that has been a really wonderful intersection of something else that I love and bringing that to menstrual cycle education and body education, both of which can be topics that might seem boring or hard or scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely wish I knew more about my cycle when I was younger. So your service is so important. Like every month I would just kind of wait for blood to appear. And that was like when I knew my period was coming. I had
Yeah.
no idea how long it would last or anything like that. So your
Yeah.
classes are so important. And I came across you and your work when I stumbled upon your magazine or your little zine in a
My little
shop
zine.
in upstate New York called Awesome Ovaries. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, how that came to be, what the process of making that was like. Was that your first scene? Anything you could tell us.
Totally. So if anyone wants to see, this is the zine. Oh, you can't even see it in my incredibly bright light. There we go. Awesome ovaries and other things you may not know about your changing body. Yeah, I love that you found this in a bookstore in Woodstock, New York. I was reading that.
Yeah.
That so tickles me to know that this little zine is getting out there. So I wrote this zine with my very dear colleague Ashley Hartman Annis, and she and I both share a similar philosophy about teaching about body stuff and cycle stuff, in the sense that we want to make it really accessible, really clear, and really warm-hearted. So she and I both have this sense of we want to make it like getting a nice big warm cozy hug. Ashley's not here with us, but I think I'm channeling her correctly when I say that. Um, and that's kind of our teaching approach as fertility awareness educators. So when we started talking about doing this zine together, because we just wanted to collaborate on something, we were like, hey, you're like-minded, and let's do something great together. And we thought, gosh, we really want to make something for youth that is more than just periods, and it's more than just talking about like the usual changes of puberty, like sweaty armpits and breast development and voice changes and all that. We really wanted to transform what we knew about as fertility awareness educators, all these amazing kind of unknown facts about the female body, into a zine that was, like I said, really warm and friendly and accessible for youth, that could really serve them in a lot of ways that don't get talked about in school, in sex ed class, and in other puberty education sources that we were looking at. So we wanted to bring all of the cool nerdy stuff that we know as fertility awareness educators to a young audience. And so from there, we just started jamming, and Ashley did all the writing and all the illustrating, and I helped, or she did all the handwriting. It's all handwritten, if you can see. So fun. Yeah, we ended up with this beautiful 43-page zine that is now in far-flung places like Woodstock, New York. I love it.
Yeah, I loved Awesome Ovaries. I totally agree with the sentiment that it's like a warm hug. I think one of the main issues that we have as in sexual education is that it's so medical and they're just like showing you these diagrams and all these things, and you're just like sitting there 10 years old, like, what am I watching? What am I looking at?
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, it
having
can
those,
feel very, can feel very like hard and cold and clinical and just like, ugh, like it's, yeah,
yeah.
it's a little scary. It's a little intimidating. So yeah, we did not want to go that route.
Yeah. And the additional tidbits about like the clitoris and all those stuff that you just don't learn about because sex education like does not want to include desire or pleasure in any type of way. It's just like this is what's happening and this is all you need to know. And desire is for something later in life. But
Yeah.
most kids are exploring that stuff at a young age, and we should be all be talking about it.
Yes, totally. I don't know about you, but the message that I got and the message that a lot of women that I talked to got was basically, oh, you're having your period, so here's pads and tampons and have fun bleeding for the next 40 years. Like off you
Yeah.
go. You know? It was like, okay, really? But okay.
Yeah. So I was wondering, actually, now that we're bringing up like what sex education and like period talk was like in your youth, if you could expand upon that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up with really wonderful, crunchy, hippie parents who were very loving and wonderful, and yet my upbringing was still within this larger context of this larger culture, which at least in the late '90s when I was coming of age was very uh, closed and shut down, and we all got the standard sex ed in school, which was basically, you know, something about sperm, something about egg, something about pads and tampons, and it was all like really embarrassing. I'm like, ugh. No one wanted to talk about it. We all wanted to get it over with and go to recess as soon as possible. Um, I did have a very, I would say, sex positive mom, but for me, um, you know, I could have used so much more uh, education about it. You know, the period is just the tip of the iceberg, and so much my education could have been fluffed up with so much more positivity and excitement and honoring and like accurate education. I had no idea um, what fertility meant, what fertility signs were, what short, long, or irregular cycles meant. I had no idea that it wasn't uh, healthy to be having bad period pain. There was no coming of age experience for that. There was no honoring. There was no community of wise women to like walk me through that transition. And like I said, I had to come to that so much later, probably around the age of 25. So yeah, that was my story. It was really excruciatingly awkward and painful, and I was completely in the dark about everything. I always say that I learned more about um, like biology and protons and neurons and how to do like long division in school than I did about my actual body, which is something that I would have to, you know, that I would be living with and having a relationship for the rest of my life with. And so it's just incredibly, it's mind blowing to consider how little education we get on that. But we have years and years and years of education of history and math and grammar and like things that we'll probably never use again in our lives.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when I was younger, when I was learning about my period, I had access to like the internet. So most of my education was like learning in videos and then going to ask my mom about it. And I was probably watching videos about my body that I probably shouldn't have been. Like they were
Mm.
more informative than I needed them to be. But there is like a lack of a human touch in those videos, even if it is a real person on the other side. You do need that, like as you were saying, wise women to walk you through because it still
Yeah,
sometimes feels so individual, even when watching.
right. So you, yeah, so I grew up kind of at the dawn of the internet. So I didn't like have that, but I'm curious, what were the videos you were watching?
Um, there was like a video that was my favorite. It was about this like little girl, and she was the camp gyno, and she went to the camp and she got her period for the first time, and it was just like her throwing her tampons and like having this really celebratory experience with her period until other girls started getting their period and she was like, what's happening? And it just like kind of sparked this interest of mine of like, oh, what's my period? What is this? And always had like this series where they taught you about your period. And there was like a girl who was like your older sister, and she taught you about how to insert them, what products to buy. And it was honestly quite nice. It was very kitschy, very
Oh,
early 2000s of a video. But
wow.
and
Wow. Does that still exist like on YouTube or anywhere on the internet?
I do go back to watch the Camp Gyno one a lot because that was like that
I'm gonna have to
was
look that up.
yeah, it was such a core memory of mine that I love that video. Uh,
Wow. Camp Gyno. Okay, because I'm always looking for more fun videos to show my students, and I would love to see more like Y2K area sex ed videos.
yeah. And then I was watching like sex educator YouTubers, like Hannah Witten and this other YouTuber that I used to watch a lot, and they just spoke about like actual sex, not much about like your period, but I was always interested
Mm,
in those two topics, and they kind of went hand in hand. So that's what I
yeah.
was watching.
Yeah. Well, good. The internet was good for something because I'm
Yeah.
always worried that these young kids are, going to find out way too much, or they're not going to, or way too much as in things that are not geared towards them, that might be, uh, you know, more adult in nature or what. I mean, it's the internet. So of course, like
Yeah.
everything can go wrong, right? But I'm like, oh, some people actually found good stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
Like,
I was
it makes
quite
me happy.
lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your work in the fertility space and the services and programs you provide, and how did you find out that fertility was something that you wanted to work in?
Yes. So the in a little teeny tiny nutshell, um, I discovered something called the fertility awareness method when I was 25 because I didn't want to go back on the pill. I didn't want to get an IUD. And I thought, well, like, what else is there? Like, that can't be the only option. So I scoured the internet for natural birth control. I didn't really know what I was looking for. I kept coming up across the rhythm method, and I thought that's what fertility awareness was. But by sheer fate, my partner at the time found this book at the thrift store called Taking Charge of Your Fertility, which is a very popular, very well-known book all about the practice of being able to understand and chart your own daily fertility signs. And so I started learning that. And not only did it give me the ability to understand when I was fertile and when I was not, and then safely avoid pregnancy with that knowledge, it answered every single question that I'd ever had about my body and my cycle in a way that no doctor could answer, no nurse, no Google search. It was all coming from my own body by tracking these 3 daily fertility signs. And it healed so much. It healed so much of all that like adolescent pain and misery that I talked about, and all the awkwardness and feeling disassociated with my body. And it helped me stop fearing my fertility, which is, I think, is a thing that a lot of people fear. They fear an unplanned pregnancy. They fear not knowing when they are fertile. They fear not knowing what's going on with their cycle. And so for me, it was all of a sudden me being put in the position of power as the person who knew my body best before anything else, before any test, doctor, app, gadget, anything. So of course I wanted to shout it from the rooftops, which is why I went on to train as a teacher, as a fertility awareness educator, as we are called. And I always knew that I wanted to work with girls and teens in some capacity. And pretty much as soon as I graduated from my 2-year training, I was like, that's it. I'm leaping into the area of youth education because I want to share with, I don't think that anyone should get to the age of 25 before they understand what cervical fluid is, which is something we talk all about in the zine. It's something Ashley and I are both very um, passionate about spreading the word on. And so I jumped in and I started teaching these 6-week girls programs for ages 10 to 12, 10 to 13. And I created my whole coming of age course so that girls could feel more positive and more prepared and generally more chill about their whole coming of age time and really get their answers from a trusted mentor. And of course, my fertility awareness education helped so much with all of that. And I also love teaching to moms and parents because they don't have this information either. They weren't taught it. So there's a great deal of work that I like to do with the parents as well. So luckily, all of that adolescent angst around my body and puberty and periods translated into something truly wonderful, where now I can help, I can be one of those wise women to walk my students through this transition, and really give them that support and the education and the reverence and the celebration.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody that is like dedicated to their cycle tracking app and is like loves the ease of it, and why they should transition to tracking their own cycle?
Hmm, totally. So I never want to say that there's one right way to be in tune with your cycle or to learn about your cycle or to be charting it. You know, not everybody wants to get super nerdy and do what I do, which is the charting and the graphs and the numbers and the lines and the, you know, all the biology and physiology. So, you know, if you just want to track your periods or your moods or whatever, that's totally cool too. I will say the benefit of actually charting your fertility signs in the practice of fertility awareness is that if you're tracking, so if you're just tracking your periods alone, you only have one little tiny data set to go off of. You're like, okay, that's my period. But the period is like a tiny slice of the whole pie that makes up your cycle. And so learning to chart what I teach, which is cervical fluid, basal body temperature, or your temperature first thing in the morning, and also cervix changes, then you will have the full picture of what's going on. So most people think that menstruation is the main event of the cycle, but ovulation is actually the main event of the cycle. And so when we're charting our cycles, we can see if and when we ovulate. And we really want to be ovulating. We want to have good, strong fertility, because in turn, that gives us strong bones. It protects us from heart disease. It gives us good insulin sensitivity. It helps with our mood, our libido. It has like a gigantic list of benefits that the hormones from ovulation create. So we really want to be ovulating, and being able to track when and if we are ovulating gives us the ability to say, okay, are my hormones normal? Yes or no, you know? And then charting these signs also gives us so much more information than just charting a period, because it'll show you, you know, if you're doing this in a more formal setting, like the way I teach it to avoid pregnancy, we're applying certain rules, certain protocols. So that is going to give you a all natural method of contraception, which is amazing. And it will also show you so many things, like the exact little window of time when your period might start. That's like a superpower in and of itself. And it'll show you how strong your hormones are. It'll show you what short, long, or irregular cycles mean. It just clears up all those like weird things and little mysteries that you never knew before, that you would Google, you know, and try to get answers from Google, or like ask a friend and maybe they knew the answer, or like you asked your doctor, but they didn't really know. It clears up all that information. And the best thing of all is that it's coming freely from your own body every day, which to me is just, it's just like what a gift to be able to understand that. So that's why I encourage charting your fertility signs. This is best learned with an educator, because there's a learning curve and there's a lot that, you know, a lot of pieces that you have to fill in. But if nothing else, you can certainly observe your cervical fluid, which is your number one sign of fertility. And yeah, obviously I won't teach a whole lesson on how to observe your cervical fluid, but look it up, or get in touch with me, and I would be so excited to teach you all about how to do that.
Yeah, I think like in the times that we're in, especially with this idea that if you're tracking your cycle on a specific app, that your data could be sold and stuff, a lot of people are now really interested in charting their own
Yes.
cycle. And I think something that really sparks my interest as well that you were talking about is hormone tracking, which is something that is so essential and something I really, really wish I learned when I was younger, because sometimes you're just sitting there and you're like, why am I feeling this way? Like something is really off, but you're only told to look at like when you're bleeding and not. So I think that this is really
Right.
important, and I'm probably gonna have to sign up for a class because I need to learn how to do this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And you know, even if folks don't want to do it as like an official method, like just as
Mhm.
a lifestyle practice, as a way to get to know your own body, it's really amazing. And yeah, I love what you said about the data privacy issue, because that is also a huge reason. There are certain apps that I recommend, or you can do what I do, which is chart on paper like this. You can kind of see, which I've been doing for 11 years now. So yeah, lots
Would
of
you like to
options.
let us know the apps that you recommend?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I recommend an app called Read Your Body, um, which is totally private, totally secure. It's founded by two women who are from the fertility awareness world. So they have a huge respect for, what should actually go on a charting app. It's highly customizable. It doesn't use a ton of like pink and purple, which a lot of other apps use that I know we all get sick of, like, really more pink, more flowers. And then there's another app that's coming out soon, or it will be probably by the time most people watch this. It's called Lutea, Lutea, and that's another app. I believe both of those are either they're very low cost or they're free. I think Read Your Body is just a couple dollars a month. So yeah, those are the ones I recommend.
Yeah, I'll definitely check those out and
Yeah,
look those. Um,
cool.
so I was wondering, like you were saying, as an educator, you describe yourself as somebody who wants to take a really warm approach. How would you say that it changes depending on like the groups that you're teaching or the kind of topic that you're doing?
Hmm. Yeah. So when I teach to adults, I still try to make it as simple as though I were talking to one of my 12-year-old students, right? I like to keep it really clear and really simple and really easy to understand. And I bring in things like art. I bring in things like I use a lot of visuals and things like that. I have amazing, props and hands-on stuff that I wish I had at this moment, but I don't. And so um, yeah, I and then when I depending on what youth group, what age I'm teaching to, I will cater that to them as well. So again, I do lots of, I love to bring my performing arts background to this. So we'll do skits to act things out. We'll do art projects. I find that the best way for this information to reach people a lot of times is through story and through feeling embodied with it. Like when I teach to 10-year-olds, we talk about the 4 seasons of the earth and how those are like the seasons of our cycle, and how in wintertime you would never go out wearing a bikini. Just like when you're on your period, you probably don't want to go to basketball practice or go to a really like big sleepover, and that's natural and that's okay. Like that's the natural order of things. So the earth as in our bodies, um but generally, yeah, I like to be fun. I like to be playful and do my best to meet people where they're at, because I know this information is like, it can feel like so much after never having heard it before. It's like, wait, whoa, 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 slow down. Like there's so much to take in. So I try to like ease in and go slow. Um, Even though I usually just want to like burst upon them with all the cool things that I want to share. And, so just like, yeah, going easy and slow, because I know this is not information that most of us grew up hearing. So it feels all very new, like a new language.
Yeah, like you could be well into your 30s and have the same kind of understanding of your body and your period as someone who's in like eight. And yeah, and it's
Yeah.
quite sad to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why like I love working with the parents in, of my classes, and especially with the moms, because they just need so much tenderness and care, because their young girl inside of them never got honored. She never got the appreciation and the tender love and care that she needed. So oftentimes there's like a lot of deep work to do with the moms, with walking them through and healing their own inner maiden, and
Yeah.
giving them that knowledge, so that then they and their daughter can be like on the same page with all the information they need and like feeding off of each other. So that's always really cool to see.
I sadly see that we have a countdown for the time that we have left. I don't know if you see that on your
Oh yes,
computer
I
as
do.
well.
I see the countdown. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess my last question would be, where can we find you and support your endeavors?
Yes. So if you are in the North Bay of California, I am in Sonoma County, and I'm currently teaching or planning to teach live classes here. I'm not currently doing so much online, but I do have a ton of resources on my website, which is cyclewiselove.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at cycle.wise. That's really the most active place where I hang out and post all kinds of fun, silly, sassy, informative um, things about cycles and all that jazz. So yeah, I would love to connect with anyone who's watching this globally or locally.
All right. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for taking the time out of your day to meet with me and have this wonderful conversation. I hope
Oh,
that you
such a
have
pleasure.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Maya.
All right, it was so lovely to meet you. Bye.
All right, bye.